John, is this for Zoom?
Yeah, it's probably on YouTube.
On YouTube?
Yeah,
You're just recording it.
I'm streaming, yes, I'm recording.
But people can join from,
No, I'm not advertising. I'll just put out the link.
yeah, okay.
Don, can you hear me? Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me now? You guys got about 2 more minutes to get everything off your chest that you wanted to talk about now. Then the room's going to get real quiet.
Oh, no.
That 1 year. I don't think that there's any superior.
You want to sound check?
No, it's fine.
Diane.
And we're gonna do the chair shuffle right up front and then we're gonna get started.
Diane, I just want to tell you that you're off camera if you're too far from the table. That's on camera. Come a little bit to the this way. Okay. Okay, you're on camera.
Okay, as everybody here knows, I like to start meetings on time, so this one's gonna start on time. First of all, I'd like to thank Kris Abrudan, who is the communications director for WashDOT. She will actually be running this meeting. And James here will be the floor mic. So when we get to the questions and answers, and please don't ask anything or raise your hand prior to the questions and answers. That will make the meeting much more efficient. There's a lot of people in the room, and I don't know how many of these people have something to say to you, but we want to get through that first before we get to Q&A, and hopefully it will lessen the questions. Make sure that you stay on subject. If your telephone is on, please turn your telephone off. Now, all the way off, please. No ringers. You may ask one question when it's your turn, and then we'll try to, that way we'll try to get to everybody in the room that has questions. And then I think Kris has some other actions that she's going to talk about later. But let's be respectful. Let's stick to the subject, and let's see if we can't get the issue that affects every single one of us in this room cleared up. And Kris, it's yours.
Microphone.
Can everyone hear me now? Great. All right. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name's Kris Abrudan, as Diane mentioned, and thank you, Diane, for the introduction. I'm with the Washington State Department of Transportation. We do have several speakers today that are going to proactively share some information with all of you in hopes of answering as many questions as we can. So I would just ask that you allow folks to get through those couple of updates from a few speakers, and then we're going to open it up to question and answer. All right, and we have James, who's going to be facilitating that. And Diane, thank you for the ground rules there on how to do Q&A. And then, you know, we're really going to make a judgment call as we get a little bit further into this meeting. If I start to see that questions kind of die down a little bit, I also want to be mindful of the fact that folks may have some additional questions, especially for some of our speakers here. So we may kind of close this large meeting and just allow time for folks to mix and mingle and chat with some of our speakers on an individual level. Okay. So if that sounds like a good game plan, then first up, we're going to have Brian Nielsen, our region administrator for the Northwest region for DOT, talk to you, and he will provide a lot of updates as it relates to the encampment.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for being here with us tonight. I wanted to share an update on the encampment, what we know so far. As Kris mentioned, we have a few speakers with us, and then we'll field some questions. And I just want you to know I have a bit of information to share. I'm going to kind of read this thing so that I get it all for you, and then we'll have questions for the things that we missed. So as some of you know, cleanups conducted by various agencies have occurred at the site before. What's different today is we have what we refer to as the state's right-of-way safety initiative. It was passed by the legislature in 2022. 3 agencies lead this initiative: the State Departments of Commerce and Transportation, I'm with, and the Washington State Patrol. The right-of-way safety initiative is a result of Governor Inslee's early request to the legislature to address increasing safety issues along state highways. Our agencies do this work in partnership with numerous local governments and nonprofit partners such as the City of Seattle, King County Regional Homeless Authority, and some of our service providers that are actually here with us this evening. Currently, the right-of-way safety initiative work is happening in 5 counties: King, Pierce, Thurston, Snohomish, and Spokane. And our initial efforts have been centered around some of our largest interstate corridors. While homelessness isn't new on state property, the right-of-way safety initiative is. It comes with requirements and new types of funding provided by the legislator that allows us for new approaches and opportunities to augment our local resources to provide shelter and housing options. The Department of Commerce, through the initiative, has $143 million statewide for a variety of services and types of housings, of which $50 million is allotted to King County. That brings me to what is different, or what this effort is doing in King County specifically. So far, state funding has been invested in 80 units of non-congregate shelter, 44 master leased apartments. These are leases made by an agency or a service provider, and then they are subleased to someone needing housing. We've purchased a 54-unit building that is currently being renovated. A contract is underway for another 100 master leased apartments, and it also pays for work of our contracted outreach partners, particularly at this site with Reach and PDA. We've made progress resolving 8 large sites in King County under this initiative. Myers Way will be our 9th. In the overall work, as of May, 324 people have accepted housing under the initiative, and 254 of those remain in those housing options. While that is positive news to share, I also want to be realistic with you. In King County alone, we estimate there are over 900 encampments on washed-out property alone. There are simply more people living unsheltered than there is housing in our initiative. The availability of housing is the challenge for us to all address. I know some of you have expressed concern for the well-being of those living unsheltered, and want to share with you some of our requirements as required by the legislation that's funding this work. Our responsibility is to transition persons residing on state-owned rights-of-way to safer housing opportunities with an emphasis on permanent housing solutions, and that the housing offered is a meaningful improvement over the individual's current living situation and is well matched to an individual's assessed needs. What that means is that we don't just focus on moving people into congregate shelter and off of our property. These congregate shelters are an open space with multiple beds, no privacy or storage. Most people living unsheltered are not successful in this environment for various reasons, and ultimately return to living outside. We've learned that the way to be successful long-term is to provide housing options that meets people's needs. I want to talk a little bit about WSDOT's role in this work. WSDOT coordinates closely with our local partners who have access to resources and human services that are required to provide a pathway to temporary and permanent housing. There's 4 actions that allow encampments to be removed from WSDOT right away. The first is the offering of shelter and services to people living there. Second, we must provide storage of their belongings. While we do this work, we provide the safety and security of both the people living on site and our work crews. And the final step is restoration, cleanup of the property. And that last step is WSDOT's responsibilities and our expertise. We clean up the roadway. As such, we rely on our partnerships with local jurisdictions, law enforcement, and social services when addressing an encampment. As for the Myers Way site specifically, we know it's grown. There are a number of people that have come on the site for a variety of reasons. Some of those is because they know that we are there and they will receive housing. Our service providers have established a list of 48 individuals living on the site, and the goal is to house all of them. Now that the list has been finalized and closed, newcomers to the site are being turned away. While that is a difficult message for our service providers to deliver, it is the only way that we truly resolve the site. Those 48 people represent individuals living closest to Myers Way. We know that there are some individuals tucked into the hillside closer to 509, and we will continue to work with them. But our focus is first to resolve the primary encampment on top of the hill where most people are living. Several individuals have already been moved into housing for various emergency conditions. This past Friday, WSDOT posted notice on the site that all operable vehicles need to move off the site. The city has posted no parking signs on both sides of Myers Way, and later this week, WSDOT will place barrier eliminating access for any new vehicles onto the site. This will manage access and inhibit growth, and it's a big first step for us to resolve this site in the end. Next, we'll focus on site cleanup and planning for reduction in footprint. There are several abandoned tents, vehicles on site, so we will start with to identify and take those items for removal as soon as we are able. This work will continue once the site is resolved. Outreach providers are also working with those living on site to do a trash-free pickup. Simultaneously, outreach service providers are working with those on site to determine their needs while also identifying and securing the housing we need to move people into. 2 of our service providers are with us this evening, Lisa Daugaard and Nichole Alexander. They'll be able to talk more about that process. Once the site is resolved, people have moved into their housing options. WSDOT will assume control of the site. And our first step will be to remove vegetation to increase sight lines to the property. With the size of this site, it's going to be difficult to secure it. We continue to discuss with our partners long-term options to monitor the site and prevent re-encampment. And finally, with regard to timelines, we are moving as quickly as we can to resolve the site. The majority of the existing King County housing associated with the state initiative is full or just coming online. Housing is being identified, but we won't be able to fully resolve the site until we have enough to offer to everyone based on their needs. Lisa and Nichole will talk more about what the needs assessment looks like. I know not being able to share a definitive timeline is not what you wanted to hear this evening. I'm asking for you to trust in the process. What we've learned as we've been doing this work is that our initiatives takes time. The intensive outreach approach does work. We've seen a 90% acceptance rate for services because we take the time to get to know the people on site and what their specific needs are. We've also seen that when we take that time to place individuals according to their needs, the majority of those people remain housed. With that, I will turn it over to Lisa and Nichole from PDA, which is an outreach service nonprofit, to talk about what services are happening on site.
Thank you, Brian. Good evening, everyone. It's really great to be here with you tonight. I'm going to be brief. I am not, as you can tell by looking at my shoes and then my colleagues' shoes, I'm not the boots on the ground, and Nichole is really the expert. And if I were you, I would more want to hear from her. But let me tell you what we do. You've heard about the method that is being brought to bear on this encampment, which is one of figuring out how the people who are out there right now will not be living outdoors, not where they are now and not a few blocks away, right? So bringing people indoors and beginning the process of stabilization and recovery for people. That probably sounds like a long process, and it isn't an instant process, but we do it pretty rapidly. So I want to reassure you, like, where is this going, and how can I assure you of where it is going? Starting in 2020, we're an organization that does public safety work where the issues involve people's needs. People have behavioral health conditions, mental illness, substance use issues, or are really, really poor, just really in a very difficult position. And where the solution to that is to address those needs. So that's generally speaking what our organization does. Starting in 2020, like like everyone, we noticed that there was, an enormous growth in visible encampments right adjacent to where people were trying to live and do business, right? And it was not viable. And for us, in our line of work, we were like, well, we got to go get those people, right? Like if we can't do that, we need to shut our doors because that's the task. So we started to assemble what we needed to make sure people would say yes to an offer to go inside. So we needed non-congregate shelter where people could have some privacy, and especially people who are mentally ill could have peace of mind, right? Not be right on top of other people, not have other people right on top of them. And then we had to assemble a team of folks who would provide care on site and sufficient support so that it wouldn't be chaotic. So we built those, we created those places for people to go. And we're still operating 4 of those facilities in mainly downtown Seattle. And let me just say, this is where the people who are living here are going to, many of them are going to go. So they don't just disappear, right? Now they're with us, and we are taking responsibility for what happens to them from that point on. And that's super complicated, so we have to have a skilled team. So we built that. And then we had to have the ability, I don't have this ability, but my colleague here does, and so do some other folks that I'm lucky to work with, have the ability to go into a situation that is chaotic, dangerous sometimes, and where people have very little trust. That, there's a lot of people who come in and assess and ask people what's going on with them, but almost nobody actually comes with a solution that is going to meet their needs. Often the folks who are out there have been kicked out of other places that they were offered, and they come in for a day, but the way that they are, it's not going to work in a congregate setting, especially people who are mentally ill. So many people living in encampments now are chronically homeless. They basically are not welcome throughout many facilities and much of our system. So to persuade those folks that this is going to be different takes a minute and a lot of muffins and really incredible skills. So that's what our team does when we have been assigned to, we're going to resolve this encampment. Go in, meet people, establish safety, establish trust, start really understanding what's going on with people so that we don't match them to a housing option that they're just going to get kicked out of or that will not meet their needs. There are people who are medically frail, they need nursing support. We can't go put those people in, just a hotel room on their own. So when we have been assigned, as we have for Myers Way, to resolve an encampment for us, you want to do that as fast as possible because it's super complicated and people need to not be wondering what's going to happen. So you want to make a plan, keep that plan, deliver exactly what you said. And when it's over, there's nobody living there. And that's what's going to happen here. How do I know this? we've done this 24 times since the fall of 2020 in encampments that are more complicated than this and larger than this. And that's not to minimize the size or the complexity of this one. But 85 people living in City Hall Park in Seattle, 65 people living in the Dearborn Cloverleaf, 80 people, 40 people living in and 80 people spending almost all of their time in Pioneer Park and Pioneer Square right before Christmas in 2022. So when we started, it was like this, and when we ended, there was nobody staying there. And because of partnership, where's Donna? Because of partnership with colleagues in the city, and all of that work was supported by the city, the county, and then the regional homelessness authority. So we didn't just do this on our own. Because we partner with the city and now with WashDOT, it's not just that the people are gone, the place is cleaned up. I mean, it's as if that had never happened here. And that is our objective, is to return the space to ordinary public use, because people should not be living in these conditions. We will resolve this, and it is not going to be tomorrow, and it is not going to be next week, but it's not going to be next year. So I don't hardly ever stand in front of a group of people and make assurances, but I assure you, we know how to do this, and we are doing this soon, very quickly. And we are, it could have already been done, but for the fact that the housing destination is not, there's been some delays in opening it. So that will happen next month. And so we can't finish until next month. And you don't want to sort of get started before you can finish, because then that leaves people in a really halfway space, which can get very unsafe and disorganized. Nichole, what can you add about the assess? So right now we're in the middle of the assessment process to make a by name list and understand, like Brian said, understand exactly what's going on with each person and make a plan for each person. And this is the woman who is the genius behind that process, Nichole.
Thank you, Lisa. So some of you may have seen me or my team. We quietly try to arrive very early in the morning. We park alongside the street in multiple different spots. We're the ones that have the wagons that always have muffins out. You'll see us bring out dog food and stuff like that, water, all the different supplies that we come out with. So we are out every morning, Monday through Friday, along with an organization called Reach. We come out every day to meet folks, and I don't want to just meet you on a good morning, right? I don't want to like come out, you're doing great and everything's great. I want to see you on your hard days too, because we know that this site is hard for everybody, and we really want to be able to plan appropriately for that person. So when we're assessing folks, when we're out here engaging with folks daily, we can see how folks are problem solving, how they're living, what's their quarters look like, right? Are they very organized, or is there lots of belonging? Do we have a group, like a family network that they're living with, so that we can appropriately start to plan how we would move folks in? Like, what will be a good destination? Is this person off to the side by themselves? They've been out here for a very long time and they aren't very friendly to people. They just want to be kind of by themselves. So then we start to plan around who a case manager is that would work with this person, what type of location will work for this person. And that is a lot of field work that we're doing. We're also bringing out mobile medical, our RNs when they're needed. We've done a lot of response. There's been SPD out sites. We've done some violence response, a little bit of mitigation around safety concerns for folks that are in our site. We've definitely started moving toward how we're safely going to move folks inside. We work in partner with Donna, the city, WashDOT, to really start to see how we can plan to get a lot of the trash off site. We want to make sure that it's healthy as possible for folks, right? We want you to be able to live healthy. We want them to be able to live healthy. So we're definitely going to start to try to get a lot more trash out of the site. So you might see us having things lined up on the side so that Donna's team can come in. As we start to have tents come down or people come inside, you'll see a lot more of that work. You'll also see the team out in the mornings or in the afternoon alongside. Sometimes we're with SPD, like when we did the postings, we were with WSP, and that way we're in there with our campers and our environment to let everybody know that this is what we're here for. We're definitely about having congruent conversations, because we don't want anything to take anybody by surprise, right? This is a group work, and we want to make sure that everybody's comfortable along the way on what we're working with.
How about if you want me to get a red carpet for them?
It doesn't make any sense.
You should be able to say them once today.
We will be glad to take questions when we get to that point, but basically what Nichole is describing is what works. We're doing what we do the way that we do it because that's what results in a resolution of the encampment that, as I described, safely and without drama or trauma for the people there, but also for our staff and for the surrounding neighborhood. So it's going to be calm. It's going to be like an engineering project, and it's going to be done. Oh, and sorry, my privilege is to introduce Lieutenant Dorothy Kim from the Southwest Precinct.
I think, so I'm the operations assistant for Southwest Precinct, and I believe I spoke with many of you guys at a recent meeting as well. So as you guys are aware, this is, the process, and I hopefully I was able to explain it to you last time at this meeting. And I just also want to reiterate that, I was actively involved with the site down in Tuam, Michigan. And although it does take a long time, working together, I do believe it's a better process than what we had before. So we just, kind of have to let the process work. It's frustrating right now, but an end is in sight. So I do agree with that. So SPD's role in this is basically, right now we're answering 911 calls and we're responding to any criminal activity. So I just came with a couple of things of what we've done recently. Obviously, the homicide, you guys were all concerned about that, obviously. And then the disturbances related to it in the following days. So that's, one thing that we, our homicide unit is working on, and it's still an active investigation. So we really can't speak about it, but it is an investigation. So in year to date, 22 stolen vehicles have been recovered from this location, which is, pretty significant. This includes a vehicle that was recovered with 20 shotgun rounds and 22 rounds of ammunition. Another vehicle was riddled with bullet damage and obviously was involved in a shooting, and that was recovered inside the encampment. Another vehicle had eluded officers and was subsequently located in the camp and then spray painted another color. Officers estimate that 15 to 20 stolen vehicles associated with the encampment have eluded them when officers attempt to stop them. And then just recently, we've had several arrests related to folks in there. One was a stolen vehicle. Another one was a felony arrest for failure to register as a sex offender, some misdemeanor arrests for DV violations of court orders, and then some felony arrests for possession of stolen vehicle. And in that particular one, the suspect ran on foot, was captured, and then the passenger ran into the woods and evaded arrest. And then another DV no contact order violation. So as I've said before, is that, I encourage you guys all to call 911 when you see criminal activity, suspicious activity, and SPD is responding out and, taking care of the criminal activity portion of this. Moving forward, as we get to the process where some of the encampment starts being cleared out, SPD will be working with State Patrol, providing security for the workers, for the people involved in this process. And as with in Michigan, we will also, after the encampment is cleared, we'll work with WSP to make sure that we have the proper documents in place so that we can enforce no trespassing if that's the route that we're going to go, so that we have the ability to communicate and help ensure that it doesn't become re-encamped. And so that's about it that I have.
Hi, I will stand. I'm feeling a little lame, so I've got a B injury, so I'm going to lean. But I just want to reinforce some of the things that you've heard today. In addition to the second in Michigan encampment remediation, this program came out and responded to an outdoor encampment on a sidewalk in South Delridge. They also responded and remediated a building where people were living unlawfully, what sometimes people call squatting. And they're very successful in doing this work, and they're very responsive. And this is the approach that works. Just simply doing a removal, making people move is not going to resolve the problem because people will come back to that location. This is an approach that addresses people's underlying needs, housing and other needs, making sure that people have access to address their underlying medical conditions, their substance use disorder conditions, their mental health conditions. So it's really important that this approach have a moment to do its work and do it well and effectively. I know it can be a little frustrating to wait for it to get going, but they're on the ground doing the assessments that they need to do. I also really want to thank the folks at the city, the Unified Care Team, Officer Kim, and other parts of the police department that have been working really hard to address the law enforcement issues. Seattle Public Utilities has been working on garbage pickup. But really, I want to also thank the King County Regional Homelessness Authority. When I reached out to them on May 30th and asked whether or not they could help facilitate the WSDOT right-of-way project, the funds and the program, they immediately transmitted that request, and we got a really rapid response from WSDOT of their willingness to move and do this work here. As has been explained, these are funds that have been allocated for right-of-way remediations all over the state of Washington. There are a lot of them, and the fact that both King County, RHA, and WSDOT both responded so quickly to address this issue, I think is really a testament to their commitment to this community. So really appreciate everybody coming out tonight. Appreciate your willingness to learn about this approach and why it's so effective. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, I'm gonna step over here now a little bit better in sight because this is the point in time where we definitely want to open things up to any questions that any of you may have. James with the orange mic is going to help facilitate that, and it looks like Diane has a couple words to share first.
No, except raise your hand. We'll try to call on you in order, and I'll try to keep that in order for James. Remember, keep it to the subject that you just heard about, and try to stay neutral if not positive. And one question, and please state your name when you get the microphone, just first name.
All right.
So when you go into the camp, are you aware of what do you call them? The people that are there? Are you aware of those that have substance abuse? And are you aware if there are weapons in the encampment?
Yes, so our goal every day is to continue safety for us. We all want to go home with children and partners, and that everybody is safe. So we continually try to make sure that we're aware of our surroundings. So we definitely work with folks who are active in substance use. A lot of us have lived experience in that, and we want to make sure that we're working with everybody on the desired levels that they need help with. And then as far as weapons go, there are many different forms of weapons. And as we all know, anything can be a weapon. And so we do try to interact with folks very carefully, but we also, we're there to build trust with folks and build that relationship. And so that is where we actively work in situations to de-escalate a lot of the time around communication with our folks.
I'll just add the, the skill set that it takes. People are living in conditions where they have to defend themselves, right? So difference between this is where we really value our partnership with SPD because often for, to analyze where it would be safe to place somebody to live, you need a thoughtful analysis of whether this person who has a weapon, have they ever used it offensively, or does it appear to be something that they're just carrying for self-defense? That's a really context-driven analysis that our staff are good at, that SPD is also very good at. And so in context, the same weapon or, whatever, it's a knife or something could be a reason not to place somebody in a particular housing solution, or something that's not a concern because they are someone who's been repeatedly sexually abused and they're going to defend themselves, and that's why they have the knife. It's like night and day, right? That's somebody trying not to be victimized versus somebody who's trying to victimize. So that analysis is super important to the work.
My name is Curtis. I was just wondering, do you guys also check the area that they're in over there? Because I just noticed, I just came in from work. There's a trail, and there was two of them that was walking into the trail, not at the main encampment, right? Into the woods. So I don't know how many people might be back in there. I'm just wondering, are you guys also making sure that you get the area, not just that one little encampment?
We definitely get our steps in. So it's so true. One of the things that we are doing actively daily is that you'll see us come in. We drive up and down, and then we also circle 509, any trails, any leads. And then once we're inside, we have to be very careful because you never know what's around the corner, but we do go in too deep with two standing at a point so that we can continue to maneuver through. We go from top to bottom, from all the way to the very corner over here, all the way up to the church, past where the gravel lot was, because there was campers over there in the gravel lot as well, down below. So we have a very large area. So sometimes when folks don't see us, it's because we are deep in the ravine, down by the grotto. There's all kinds, it's actually very beautiful inside. So we take mini hikes all around, but we do continue to find folks that are tucked away because they don't want to be in around people, and we continue to work with them. So it is not a surprise to find folks hidden, yes.
Hello, my name is Joyce Mitchell. I've been living here a little bit, about a year. So my husband and I come from a place where our problem with the homeless and everybody has been very, very a long, long time. I'm talking about Los Angeles, California. So I understand what you're going through. This morning, between the hours of 4 and 5, we had another gunshot.
Yeah.
Okay, I know everybody. I'm not trying to get anybody upset, but like I told one person before, if I wanted to go through this kind of thing, I could have stayed in LA. Okay, I could have stayed in California, and I understand their plight. I have been in their plight and dug myself out by my bootstrings to get out of positions like that. So I'm hoping that when you go in the morning, that you will be careful also too, because these things are going to continue to happen. I have PTSD, so I want you to understand that it does trigger it, and it does affect me. And I try to be very courteous to anybody and everyone around. So I just wanted to add that.
I know how to use it. My name is Sharon. My concern is, this is the second encampment that we have had across the street. We came in with with the services and did everything that you're saying that you do, which by the way, that's very positive and I'm really impressed by what you're doing. However, you're going to go through all this work. They're going to go in and clean it all up. And then we're going to put up barriers and no trespassing signs. And then more people are going to move in. What are you going to do to prevent that from happening? Because when we first saw people moving in over there and said, hey, they're starting to come back. You need to get over there and work with those people now so it doesn't become this big community. And what is your plan for the future after you get all this work done and we spend all this money to clean it up because the ground is now contaminated? Yes. You know, our asset as taxpayers is being not very well taken care of. And so I would just like to know what the future will be after you get it cleaned up.
So I appreciate your concern. I've been working with WashDOT for going on 30 years, and I'd say at least 20 of that I've had the same experience, right? We experienced the unhoused on our right of way. We move them usually because there's a construction project coming. As soon as our work is done, we leave, people come back. What's different here is the work we're doing up front. And under the initiative, one of our key strategies, obligations really is to do the best we can to secure the site afterwards. So I mentioned earlier, we've addressed 8 sites so far over the last year or so. None of them have been re-encamped so far. We've had people move in, but part of the process, Lieutenant Kim mentioned earlier is we're very deliberate about looking for a promotion, very deliberate about setting up no trespass and communicating clearly with law enforcement where these locations are so that when we do see people coming in, law enforcement is in a position to enforce the no trespass law.
Yeah, I'll just chime in as well. The second in Michigan site hasn't been recamped, and a lot of it is because we have this coordination with State Patrol, and so we can communicate. They let us know where the keys were and gave us authority to arrest for the trespass. So I assume that's a process that we will follow after this clean, and then we have, as long as SPD has clear guidelines of what they can arrest for and under what authority, we are more than willing to do that to help keep that site clear.
Hello, we've not met. I'm Judd. I'm the Director of Policy for WashDOT, and I was asked by the Governor's office to help coordinate this effort in King County. We got a great team here. You should be impressed by this team. I'm not sure if you've had this quality of folks before, but I think this shows the seriousness of our work. Your question is a great one, and Brian didn't touch on it, but I want to talk a little bit about our activities and how we're activating sites. One of the things that we know, we can't put up enough fence, we can't put up enough Jersey barriers, we can't put up enough boulders to keep them out. We know that. And so even though we're monitoring, as Brian said, we have 8 large encampments that we have found resolution on. None of them have actually been repopulated based on monitoring. But we have thousands of sites around the state. At some point, your capacity to do that becomes less and less. So what are some of the alternative strategies? So we're working with Seattle Housing Authority about putting in a dog park. We actually have worked with them in the past about doing a patch. We are looking right now at an off-leash area in downtown Seattle in the Chinatown International District. We have trails that we're working with folks on. And so there's a lot of different strategies. And one of the things that we want to do is we'll secure this. I'm sorry, we're going to put up an ugly fence, probably some boulders and that sort of thing, but we'll come back. And part of the conversation we want to have with you is what would be some of the things that might be possible across the street, because we do like to involve the community in that and get your input in this, because you're the one that lives here. you have to experience it every day, and we don't want to do something stupid across the street, right? Make your life more miserable than you. And so help us when we call on you, and we may ask for a meeting like this to where we could do some brainstorming around that. We'd be more than happy to do that, because the one thing that we know, fencing doesn't do it. So we have to be more creative.
I'm Phyllis Forrester. I'm 85 years old, and I want to be accommodated too. My exercise has been curtailed. Right. I'm fearful, and I don't think that's right. I live on this side, so I hear all the loud cars coming up, pausing a few minutes and leaving. All the motorcycles pausing a few minutes and leaving, back and forth, back and forth. I want to tell you, I feel threatened. I really do. I've worked hard all my life. That's right. I'm living here as a citizen in reduced means. So I hear all the accommodation being made for all of these people over here, and I feel for them. Really, in a way, I don't know why they've made their decisions, because I haven't made that decision, but yet I'm having to live with it. Also, this area, this little triangle sits in a catch-22. We have to deal with Washington State, the WashDOT, well, whatever committee you want to call it. We have to deal with it. We don't even know who to call. There's a van sitting out here at the very end, been there for 2 months. I can't go down there anymore. I'm afraid. The windshield shot out. But that person, I'm finding out by an ordinance, which I'm going to talk to my councilman about, says that that person can move a car length and stay there. So there we go. That's what I want to say. Please accommodate me as well.
Ron, Judd, if you can come back in for a minute. Yeah. It's interesting, the comments that you just made to this group. And I know that there are some of you that have lived here nearly as long as I have. I was the 5th person who moved into this property. So I've been here from the beginning, and this is about the 5th encampment, Sharon, that we've cleaned up. About 10 years ago, we had a very large encampment over there that took us a number of years to clean out, for which we did a lot of education with our residents at the time about homelessness and how people end up there and how you help them out. And we did everything that we could on the humane side to take care of them, because no one should live like that. But it's funny that you should talk about what we should do with this property now. That many years ago, at the end when it was cleaned up, we asked you, WashDOT, to turn that piece of property into something that was useful, either some kind of a park or walking trails that could be identified, and that we needed a crosswalk of some kind out the exit of our property. And you guys just simply blew us off. So it's just kind of ironic that now you would want to ask us what we've done when the property was still in good condition all of those years ago. It hadn't been destroyed, the land hadn't been contaminated. And now we were talking about years from now before you could ever possibly do that with that property, unless you take all of the contaminated dirt out and come back in. And that's not going to happen either. So I'm really not very happy with what you had to say about that when we asked for it so many years ago.
So thank you for that. And I can't attest for what happened 8 years ago. It wasn't me. What I can tell you, though, this program that we're doing, the legislative initiative, our mandate is different. And that difference, I think, is going to bring a different conversation and a different result across the street than what you've experienced. And what I would ask you is be patient with us. We're going to deal with this site, and we're going to come back and have a conversation with you. And my goal is to prove you wrong. That's it. So
Not about doing wrong.
But I do hear you. I just want you to know I hear you, and I would be frustrated too. And I wouldn't probably be as calm as you are. So I thank you for that. But with that said, I'm sharing with you our commitment that we will work with you to figure out how to activate this site in a way to where it makes sense. And you don't have to every 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 months, try to call someone and say, well, tents are showing up again. Can somebody come out? That is not the repeat that you should have to experience. And we're going to ensure that that doesn't happen.
We will welcome a meeting about what to do with that project going forward. Everything in this room.
Thank you.
My name is Sue, and my question is, it sounds like you're doing wonderful work over there. And I hear you speak a lot about helping people with their mental health, their physical health, their housing needs. I may be wrong about this, but I suspect that there are a certain percentage of that population who don't want your help.
Right.
Who want to stay in the woods, in the tent, in the RV. And I'd like to ask what your approach is in dealing with those folks who say, go away, we don't want you.
So the number of people who are in that category is not zero, but it is so small that I'm sorry, but I'm okay. I'm saying this is not a philosophy. This is based on our actual experience over the last 3 years. And I see people shaking their head, but I want to tell you, we didn't know what we would find, right? We went out in the fall of 2020 and started doing that work until today. And we went out and just took our assignment wasn't to go cherry pick the easy people. It was everybody. Like, how many people would accept what we were offering if we approached this in the way that we've described? And the answer is well over 90%. So that is a new piece of information that we didn't collectively as a community have before, because we have not been trying that, okay? So that's not zero. I'm not gonna, we are truth tellers. We're not gonna come in here and tell you a fake thing, that there's not one person out there who may decide that they're gonna recede into the, into the forest and not come inside. But it's not gonna be more than a couple of people. The hardest challenge will be, there are going to be probably, Nichole may already have a sense of who those folks are. There are going to be some people that cannot easily meet their physical medical needs. Like, we're not a skilled nursing facility. We can't bring somebody in who's incontinent, and that's not, our staff is not set up to provide that kind of care. We deal with a lot of very difficult situations, but there are some people who we can't. So that's when, and I was remiss in not making clear when I said we were assigned to work at this location, that is by the King County Regional Homelessness Authority. One of the things that partnership makes possible is when we've narrowed down, okay, the 80% we have a plan for, okay, but now we have the smaller lists that are genuinely, this is a really hard question. Where can this person go? This person is schizophrenic. This person is threatening to others because they think they're going to be attacked. So that's not their fault, but they also can't be housed safely just in, down the hall from a bunch of other people. What's our plan for this person? So we started dialogue with KCRHA, the Regional Homelessness Authority, about what is a viable plan for this person. There's 1 or 2 facilities for people who, meet these different characteristics that I've already described. So we try to make that match for them. When we are done with that, and I am not, again, this is just based on, I would have guessed that the number would be higher, but it has not been. So we're not going to lose very many people. And yeah.
You've already said this, but I just want to place a finer point on it. Your experience is not invalid with people who have not accepted offers in the past. But what's different is that this program has access to resources that people weren't being offered before. Before, people were being offered shelter beds in a congregate shelter, which is a mat on a floor. The resources that this program has is able to be tailored to people's original underlying needs. And that's why they have this different experience with being able to house many, many, many more people. It's that individualized approach and the access to the spaces that meet people's needs that did not exist before.
They don't want help, they're on go.
I just want to touch on something real quick because something that we work with and the length of time that it takes for us to be out there, we're engaging with folks every single day. We're also the folks that are going to help pack your stuff with you. We're the folks that are going to be meeting you at your new lodging site. We're the folks introducing you to your case manager. And in that same process, we're the folks helping to help you find permanent housing and moving you into your new place. And then we're there with you for a year afterwards. And so we're the golden thread that comes through this because it takes trust. Some lady just shows up outside your tent and is like, hey, you want to go inside? I get a lot of FUs. I get a lot of FUs for a couple of weeks at a time, usually until they're finally like, I'm tired of this lady at my tent with the muffin. What does she really have to say? Like, prove yourself, right? Like, you've come here enough, right? And so that's what you're going to see our team out there. You're going to see Reach out there every day. And you can tell me to F off. I get it. I'm out there really early in the morning. I want to see who's living there, right? I want to connect with you. And then you'll see us out there in the afternoon because we might need to help you get parts for your car or get to the DOL, or we brought the nurse out to you, right? And we're going to build this relationship a little bit at a time so that as we have new things come up, we can walk through that path with trust. And that's a big, big part of people willing to accept anything from somebody, because I'm not just some stranger that's like, hey, you want this bed right here? Okay, no, well, we're going to take everything you have and you got to get down the street, right? So we really want to make sure that we're there and that it's a process with all of us.
Namaste. My name is Rita Metcalf, and you say you're out there every day, and it's surprising to me that this lady took at least 3 months to build her a walkway. She moved all of this vegetation and dirt and was allowed to do that, put her swimming pool in there, and it's like, how, first of all, she's homeless. Where did she get all this lumber and all of this assistance for water? And with her removing that vegetation, now we have all the rats that were living over there. Now she's moved all of this vegetation that they lived in, and now they're coming across the street to us. And this is after they made it clear to this community, the name of our community is Rob and Kill. So if you come over here, this is what they painted on the concrete barriers. If you come over here, this is what is going to happen to you. So where was the daily intervention when she was removing all that vegetation and building a walkway and building a large lot of land? She's just taken over that.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, no comment.
Answer, where were you?
Sure. So first of all, when this project is over, there won't be a pool there. I agree. So y'all, we're agreeing with you. We're agreeing. I am answering the question. There won't be a pool there. That situation will be resolved like all of the other situations. We have just been assigned to work on this project in the last several weeks. But my point, when people are living in what's called informal housing, people do remarkably strange, innovative, and sometimes quite spectacular things to make a life. And it's not viable. And this is one example, and there are many other examples of stuff that you know that is going on out there, and stuff that you don't know but suspect, and stuff that you don't even suspect that's going on out there that is not acceptable, is not okay. And the reason we do this work is because you are right. You deserve to be, you are understandably threatened, and you are understandably not comfortable with this, and it needs to come to an end. And that's why we do this work. You are correct. So don't hear, this is not like, that's fine. I mean, we're not out there working with people because it's fine. It's extremely difficult. And, you know, this done badly, it could end very badly for people that work with us. So don't think that we're out there for fun. We're out there because you're correct.
Yeah, but
it is not, no, I'm just trying to say, like, nobody is up here disagreeing with anything that you observe about the problems, the unacceptable nature of the situation. And you're absolutely right. And that's why we've chosen to do this work. So this team is new in the last couple of weeks. We, like you heard, the resources that the state and KCRHA have, you're winning. Okay, there are many other encampments that could qualify for this work that we're not going to. We've not been assigned to. We've been assigned to work here, so that's going to work out well here. That's all I can say. We were working elsewhere before this, and we will work somewhere else after this. But for right now, we're your team.
Thank you.
Okay, my name is Jackie. I'm the property manager here. So what I want to say is I've listened to everything that you all said, and I understand and I appreciate where you're coming from. And we thank you for all the support that you all are gonna give us. We're gonna hold you accountable. Trust to believe. We're gonna hold every last one of you accountable for what I hear you talking about the encampment, and I understand that's why we're here. But I'm here for these people. And every day that I'm here, I have to hear these people, and I have to hear what they go through and what we all go through. Not only am I a property manager, I'm also a resident here. So I have to deal with the encampment. I have to deal with the fires. I have to deal with the rest. We were cited by the city for having rat infestation here, which we didn't have before the encampment, at least not to the extent that it is. So I want to ask, who's helping us? Because I hear y'all say that you're helping them, but some of you all have come to this property to say, hey, let me understand what you all are going through with the encampment that's over here. None of y'all have come. Yep. I think I've seen her. Yep, I've seen her. There's a couple of faces I've seen. Right. But what I'm saying is when we call the police, we're not calling the police just because. We're calling the police because we need help. And 9 times out of 10, the police don't do anything.
Right.
Exactly.
They don't do anything. If they're stealing the cars out of the garage, they can't chase them. That's a problem, but they're still in my residents' cars. They're coming over and they're siphoning gas. They're breaking in their cars. These are vulnerable seniors.
Yes.
And they have rights. They want to be heard too. I just want y'all to come and listen. I do a day in the life with my residents and with me. And you'll understand from our perspective what we're going through, just like you all understand what they're going through. It's equal. Okay, so we want to be heard too.
My name is Frances Berge. I live here. I did not move here to hear gunshots shot at my window every night. I did not move here so that I could see prostitution being taken on every night, in the afternoons, in the mornings. I did not move here for that reason. The police come and help us. The rest of you do not. We want to know, when was the last time your house was shot at? When was the last time you suffered? We pay our bills. We pay our taxes. We are not drug addicts. We are not thieves. We do not threaten the well-being of senior citizens and disabled citizens. They do. But they're the ones you're giving all of the aid to. When are you gonna care about us as much as you care about them? I'm Sharon. I agree with everything that's been said, and one thing, it seems like the larger the encampment gets, the more semi trucks are parked, and then the more prostitutes come up out of the woods. And as was just said, we have to see that. We have to see them bring in lumber. Where did they get the money for that? And just before I walked over here at 10 after 6, 10 after 5, there was a woman outside her RV saying she wasn't going anywhere. So what are you going to do about her when she refuses to move that vehicle?
So, James, we're gonna take that question if that's okay. So at the beginning of a project like this, that's the kind of dialogue that's gonna go on, right? I'm not gonna go what Nichole said. I don't trust you. I've been through this before. Do know that, I don't know any of the people who are living out there, but typically many of the folks who are out there, the stuff that has gone on in their lives is extreme. Being survivors of child sexual abuse, of incest, of the foster care system. I'm just saying, people have their reasons for hang on a second, please. You don't have to, I will make this fast. So underneath people's fronting, right, what their initial response is typically there's a real experience, there's a real reason. The skill that is being brought to bear on this work often can get at that. I've seen Nichole do this over and over again. Somebody's like, I'm not gonna. She's like, I have a guess about what's going on with this person, and she's right. And she has now made the first connection that person has had. And this is not about like, we prefer them. This is us caring about y'all. This is us caring about y'all. We do not have to do this work, right? I mean, there's other jobs, right? We are doing this work because you deserve to have a response that works. Okay. So I'm just saying, like, we'll work it. We'll work that person's no, I'm not going anywhere, down to like, it'd be good to come back and talk to you about how that particular situation resolved with that lady. Like, what happened? What worked? Like I said, 1 out of every 100 people we're not going to have that success with, and that's okay. They're not going to be allowed to live there, right? Or you can't always be at 100%, but we will figure out what needs to happen for everyone we can in a short period of time, so that you don't have this encampment across the street from your home. That's the plan. And when first ever have a conversation with somebody, the stuff that is said, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It's often the product of mental illness, and you have to go under that. So that's what we're going to be doing. And if you want, we will come back at the end of this project and report it out. I think that it would be interesting. Yeah, absolutely. I think we will all learn a lot, and we would be glad to share what we learned.
Hi, my name is Christina Gallegos, and I'm not a resident of Arrowhead. I'm a resident of the neighborhood behind Arrowhead. And we too have been suffering the same thing you residents here have been suffering. We hear the gunshots, we hear the motorcycles, we see the prostitutes. I want to congratulate the residents here for finally squeaking the wheel loud enough, state, city, the county, the homeless authority to show up at our doorstep, okay? It's about time. But like we said, we've been here before. Oh, let me preface this by saying I'm a retired city employee. So I kind of understand how the maze works. And this homelessness methodology that they're using, I understand what you're doing, and I congratulate you on finally figuring it out, because it is complicated. Homelessness is complicated. But I'm really ashamed of the state. Where's my state guy? Where's the state guy? Oh, he left. Anyway, the state owns that property. And just like me, all of you are paying taxes, yes? And our taxes are supposed to be taking care of our property. That's our property. And just FYI, some of you don't know this, that property is the headwater to Ham Creek, which is why I'm ashamed of the state, because the state's responsibility to clean up the Duwamish begins at the headwaters of Ham Creek. Pobrecito by John Beal. Anybody here know who John Beal is? John Beal was the veteran who cleaned up Ham Creek and brought salmon back. And 20 years ago, I walked that creek with him and I saw salmon this big in the creek. If they could have made it up underneath the freeway, they would have been up in the Greenbelt. We've waited long enough for a resolution to that property. A cyclone fence, the first time we cleaned it, would have negated all the stuff that you're doing now, right? If we'd have just put a fence up. But we also want access, because none of these people can get to the Greenbelt across Roxbury to be able to take their dog for a walk or to go for a walk. And that's a perfect place for it. But if we're not taking care of it, and if the state doesn't include the Department of Natural Resources, who should be watching over that creek as the headwaters to Ham Creek and the river they're supposed to be cleaning up, it's going to turn it the same way again in 5 years.
Thanks.
I'm not committed speeches with the Q&A time, so we can kind of stick to that.
And they probably can see you as well. I can stand up. I mean, that's fine. Yeah.
My name's Keith, and I have a broad general question, and I don't know much about my question, so I'm asking, because I don't know. But mental facilities in the state, federal, have all been cut back. Years ago, Nixon and Reagan emptied the mental hospitals. Is there anything that you know of, and this is for the future, not now, which we need now, I understand, but for the future, because it keep going on for years. Do you know if there are agencies in government, federal, state that are going to work on more mental hospitals to put these people in where they should have been to begin with, the ones that need it, and drug centers? So it's like we need agencies for the future to house these people that were taken away from, the agencies were taken away from. Does anyone know if there's serious plans, state, federal, to increase this? So we have some place to put them, and because you don't have a place to put them.
Sorry. So there are some, thank you so much for that question. That is so profoundly one of the problems that give us this situation. And so there are some dynamics that give me a little bit of hope, not a lot, but a little bit of hope about that. You may have read about the federal judge who, sorry, state folks, who's fining the state a whole bunch of money because there are not adequate treatment facilities for people with mental illness who are in the court system. That isn't exactly care for, it's not housing for people who are mentally ill. And I'm concerned that all that money is actually going to go just to, make people able to know what a judge is and know what a court is and not actually solve the problem that you're aiming. But the kinds of resources that are now being identified to respond to large numbers of people with profound mental illness is starting to get big. So if people are smart about that, you do this preventative housing and support work so that people don't end up downstream behaving in a way that they end up fruitlessly in the jail, and now they cost all this money to, be competent to stand trial. So I do think that the resources are starting to move at the level that could make a difference, and that does give me a little bit of hope.
I just want to say that I moved into this place to live out the rest of my life and not have to be afraid of anything. And on my apartment, I have a patio out there and it faces the encampment. And my couch is right there where I have to look out that window at that place all day long while I'm watching TV. And I had a bullet hit my patio one time, but every now and then it sounds like they're either shooting off a bullet, and like a few nights ago, it was like bam, like a bomb, not a bullet. Yeah. And the light just brightened up the whole night. I had my Venetian blinds closed, but you could see the light flash really bright. And I have to sit there and watch this. It's hard for me not to look over there, when all this stuff is going on over there, and something's going on that isn't supposed to be going on. There's people coming there and leaving all the time. And I worry and I get scared sometimes because I never know when a bullet might come through my window and kill me. And I came here to enjoy the rest of my life. And I'd really appreciate it if you guys would work more on getting that encampment moved out.
Oh, Diane, next one.
My name's Diana Labrum, and actually most people have said what I was going to say anyway, which was talking about the weapons and about the shooting. What, can you hear me? Now you can?
Can I hold it for you?
Yeah. Okay. But I don't know if you realize how often it happens. I call the police 2 or 3 times a week because it happens all the time. And the other thing I wanted to point out is that I know there's encampments all over the city and it's a huge problem and you're trying to clean up everybody's, but we're vulnerable senior citizens. We have, many of us have PTSD and we've been abused and all those things too. And it should not have to, it's not the best, it's the worst place in the world to have this kind of an encampment where people want to be safe and live the rest of their life.
I was going to say some of the same thing as Diana said, but I also want to say that I have lived here 13 years now, and I have never been so fed up with things around here and whatnot. I mean, yes, they have their problems. We have ours. I'm here because I don't have the money anymore to go someplace else. I've looked for other places. I can't afford it. I have things that have been stolen from me from my patio. I've my car abused. I've had somebody stand over there when I was leaving to go to church, who stood over there when it had the sign that said, steal and kill. And the guy points at me and he goes, to me, I don't even know who he was. Yes, I'm a little bit scared. And you're talking about all the problems they have. We have a lot of problems with living with these people that are abusing us and our buildings and our property. And that's what bothers me. So many things have been stolen and I can't afford to replace them. And that's what I have to say. Thank you.
I'm concerned and just wonder, about the areas nearby. I understand that you're committed to taking care of this area, but it sounds like there's gonna still be people left you don't know what to do with. And very likely, they're just gonna move 2 blocks away. What kind of assurance or what kind of plan do we have to keep it just moving nearby and we start all over again?
So when we come back to do the report out, we talk about how that ended up. Was there anybody left who didn't move? What do we, what do we know at that point? We try to do by name, I may have heard somebody else say that, like a by name list, so that we know what happened with each person. And we really do try to strategize with the police, with other service providers, when there was something that we couldn't, something that we couldn't finish with that person, to follow that person, so that they don't end up just like, oh, this is a brand new day and nobody knows who this is and nobody knows what the issues are. So reducing that pool of people to a very small number allows for much better strategizing and decision making about what to do. And sometimes the response is an enforcement response, because the person behaves in a way that's so dangerous that there's not a place that they can be cared for. And that's, if so, we'll be in dialogue with the police about that. So it depends, but we could come back and talk about how it played out and how much of that there was. The idea of not just moving people down, a little bit away is the whole point of this. So that is a problem.
I'm not concerned just about the people you're dealing with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plenty of areas nearby.
Yeah.
There, Dan.
Hi, I'm Teresa. My question to all of you in the front is this the place would you want your parents to live and be scared of what's going on with us here?
Anybody gonna answer? We're not for me to hear the question. She wanted to know if anybody at that table would want their parents to live here under these conditions. Answer the question.
Yes, thank you. I don't want to speak for everybody, but I would say the answer is no. And that is why we are here today, because we want to resolve the site. And that's why we're spending the time, one, wanting to make sure that we're listening to all of the very valid concerns that you have, and also talk to you about what we're going to do to address the encampment so that it's gone.
Hi, my name is Julie, and I moved in about a month ago, but I'm pretty familiar with the area. I have a couple of follow-up questions. All right. The first one was the comment that someone made about we can't address people with physical needs, and you used incontinence as your example. I mean, look around the room. How many of us are all like, right? So it seems to me that that's a pretty simple physical thing that could be addressed, and yet it's held up as a example of someone we can't. My real question, however, is are these people being offered a housing first type of a situation, or is their access to the housing that you're having nonprofits offer to them contingent upon them participating in alcohol, drug, mental health, or can they just move in and live, or are they required to participate in programs that you feel are going to address their underlying issues before they can be housed?
Okay. It's a very, very great question. And I want to address the incontinence first, but we're 100%, okay? Because I'm a mom and I have children, and at some point I could be on that same list. I just want to put it out there. I'm sure you got that on tape too, Jonathan. So Gonna be my 3 minutes of fame right there. Anyway, so what we're looking at is individuals who cannot care for themselves, right? So we can't help change adult diapers if you are fecal incontinent or something of that nature, right? Those are folks that we advocate for then to find places that do offer that care. So is that a nursing home? Is that assisted living? There are other types of housing programs that have specialized care for that. Colostomy bags, things of that. Now, some people can change colostomy bags to a different level. Each case is case by case. We have a doctor on our staff that we staff both mental health concerns and physical health concerns along with SUD. Now, as far as, substitute disorders, so substance use, folks using substance use, common, it's something I say every day, so I didn't think about it. So as far as house first, we are absolutely house first. We want to meet you where you're at. So if you have substance use, if you have mental health, behavioral health, physical health, we are advocating through all of our partners and any resources that we know that's going to be the best fit. What we want to be able to bring you into is something that you're going to be able to succeed in and to stay in, right? That is our biggest goal. If you put somebody somewhere where it's a square peg in a round hole, we all know that they would be back outside quickly. And so that's why one of our delays was around housing, because we're working to really have housing on board to move our folks into places that are appropriate.
But what I heard in the question is, is that it? We're just gonna stuff people in a, closet, be like, this is your life, but now it's indoors, so we're good, right? So meeting people where they're at doesn't mean leaving people where they're at, okay? So that is not the methodology. The team that we have is incredibly skilled at moving people along the recovery path. And so that is different for each person. But no, we're not just like, this is great. And this is a terrible way. Most people are in a situation, it's a pretty terrible way to live. And most people ultimately don't want to live like that. So we're working on who is that person underneath. We have people working in our program that in these conditions. They are now, just like the lady said, her own story. And I'm sure other people in this room have family members or yourself have the story of, recovery and fighting hard for that, and then being able to accomplish incredible things and reunite with family. We have many people working on our team who have that journey. So they're there living, breathing, demonstration of the possibility of that every day. But there are some people who are, again, mental illness, there are people who are seriously mentally ill, and it may not be possible to just use our motivational interviewing strategies to get people to make rational decisions to change their behavior. And that's also still somebody we need to make a plan for. So we do as much as we possibly can the entire way to advance the recovery journey. We track all of that. There are behavioral health connections that we report on, and and we need more. There's a serious scarcity, like the gentleman said, of places for people who are seriously mentally ill to live. So
But you moved into the housing before any of that.
we're not moving them into permanent housing. That's not what we do. We move people into temporary lodging situation for 4 to 8 to 9 months, where we figure out what's going on with this person. How did they get here? What is underneath this? And then we do everything that we can to engage those issues. Yeah.
Thank you, Beth.
I know a lot of people are talking here about you not caring about us which I don't think is completely true. I think it's taken a long time for you to get to us, and probably longer than any of us in this room would have liked, because we've been trying for many, many months. It didn't start 3 weeks ago when you got an assignment, believe me. But I said, I want to reiterate some of the things that go on here. The damage to our property, the theft on our property, vehicles that are broken into, damaged, gas tanks that are drilled, and catalytic converters are stolen. They've gone into the garage and literally stolen cars out of the garage. They've come into our buildings, and sometimes we can't figure out exactly how that happens. We find them sleeping in our stairwells. We see them sleeping in our laundry or community rooms, tearing up our furniture. And I think the worst of the worst stories that we have is in one of the buildings where one of them defecated in one of our washing machines. Now that's about as low as you can go. And that's just the beginning. I mean, the they go to our vegetable gardens and they steal our food. These are not community gardens. These are people that are growing their own vegetables, and they come in the night and take them. They come down by the flagpole and strip naked and take a shower with our garden hose. You know, none of this is new, but I said, this is what these people have experienced over the last, not with just this encampment. The naked guy showering was the last one, but I'm saying there's many, many more stories than what you've heard in this room, and they continue, and it is not right. And I appreciate what you're saying, that you just got an assignment 3 months ago, but we started trying to contact WashDOT many, many months ago, and we had a meeting here about 5 weeks ago, and the party who was not at the table was WashDOT. And I talked to Kris about this last week. We had a very nice conversation about a whole lot of things, which I genuinely appreciated. But she said she didn't know about that meeting, and I believe she didn't. But somebody in WashDOT did, because I sent the email and it wasn't rejected. So I know somebody got it. And when we know that you're the first one who has to be at the table for us to get anything done, but you end up being the last one at the table, these people don't understand that, and neither do I. And that's one thing going forward in any of these encampments. I don't care where they are. You know, if your job is to be there first, so the rest of the people can sign on to get the jobs done that they coordinate with you, then you need to be more active in getting there where you belong in a timely manner. And you didn't do it here, but we hope you do it on the next one.
My name is Elaine, and you say that we are out there every morning and we are out there every afternoon. How many people are we?
Okay, so for PDA, for co-lead, we have myself, and I have a crew of 3 other ladies that you can see out there. And then with Reach has a row coordinator, and I believe row is the right of way, which is WashDOT program. And then she actually just got hired on 2 other staff as well. So Reach would be the organization that has been operating in Seattle for about 25 years doing outreach. They usually are in the Seattle core, but with the right of way and WashDOT, they have hired us on, contracted us on to come in and specialize at each of the sites that we're working at. So you'll usually see Reach usually before us, and then as we start to move into knowing if that site's going to be a priority, you'll see PDA coming out as well. So PDA aims to be out early in the morning because we have a million things going on, and this site is extremely large. So sometimes it does take us 5 or 6 hours to go from front to back and top to bottom. And then Reach will come out, and you'll see some of their other coordinators out. They do have a very large staff. So if there's a specialized need for somebody to get a driver's license or do any of those other things, their staff will come out as well so that we can utilize them.
All right, I do want to set expectations. We'll take 2 more questions and then we will wrap up the meeting. I know that there will be more questions, and all of us that are here will be available to take them, okay? So.
My name is Jane Jones, and I'd like to know the lady with the glasses and the one next to her, what are your degrees?
Oh. Let's go with her first. Oh, she's got a better answer.
All right, my name is Nichole Alexander, and I'm a labor support technician, postpartum care technician, lactation specialist. I have an AA in business and entrepreneurship. I have a BS in law and policy, and as of last month, I completed my master's degree in law and policy, public administration, public policy, crime policy, and recently was accepted into the UW for a doctoral program in educational leadership with an emphasis on higher education and prison systems. I want to caveat that because I was a teenage mom. I have 9 years in recovery. I've done 10 years in prison. I have, I don't know if I've vacated a couple, but I have about 18 or 19 felonies left on my record as well. So when I go into these encampments, none of those degrees count. Those degrees count to change policy, to get funding, to do this work, protect our community, to change our lives, okay? And that's coming from somebody who puts her life at risk every day to answer those gunshots, puts her life in risk to stop the abuse, to try to navigate the car theft, to try to get trash remediation, who is digging in rat infested areas, all of these things that are not my job title, okay, but are my heart and my soul, are not anything to do with my degrees. My degrees are for you guys to change what we need to change, to advocate against a lot of our policymakers, okay? So I will give you that, and I will share a little bit of my story around that, but I want to say the only reason that I sit here today is because it's my heart in the work, it's my soul in the work, and it's my fight, because I love to solve very, very hard problems, and I want to solve your problem.
This is going to be the worst anticlimax in the entire history of the human race, but I'm a lawyer, so I have to change.
All right, one more question. And then, like I said, we've got one in the back. I know that folks have more questions. I want to assure you that our speakers up here are happy to answer them on a one-on-one level. Okay, so we're not going to go anywhere, but we are going to close the larger meeting. Okay, so one more question. Go for it.
Hi, I'm Shelley Thomas, and I'm just thinking there's a disconnect, at least for me, and I'm wondering if my peers here feel the same way. You guys say you're doing all this stuff, but then we see the news in the newspapers and it says everything's closing, there's no funding, and then the last meeting we were at 5 weeks ago, I said, where's the money? And they didn't know. So is there money?
So very good question, and I am probably not the only person to answer it, but I will say on the state right-of-way initiative side of the house, you know, we shared up front, there was the 143 million that was designated for this program to be divided up amongst the 5 counties in which we're working, and there's 50 million that is in King County. So yes.
Primarily with the permanent housing. Okay.
Yes. All right. So with that, I just want to say thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for hearing us out, and thank you also for creating a space for us to listen to all of you. We do hear you. We do appreciate your concerns, and we are focused on resolving this site. So with that, I would invite you, if you want to stick around and you want to ask some additional questions of our speakers, please feel free to do so. And I think Diane has a couple things that she'd like to say to wrap up as well.
I'll get to that. One of the things, they're going to break up into little groups. So they're going to be mingling all over this building. So in the Barca Lounger room, in the craft room, out by the fireplace, here, out on the deck, choose your space, take your person with you, and have your conversation. So, and they'll be here until you don't want to talk anymore. That, having said that, I wanted to thank each and every one of you for coming. I know that, you know, some of our comments are hard to take, but I'm sure that we said nothing we haven't heard before in another meeting. I doubt that it's not a new bread box here either. And I know that you told us a lot, and people will still have to take some time to absorb some of what you said, but it will be easier to take if they can see progress. And you know, we're not asking for a drop dead date, but we're also, and I've made it very clear to Brian and to Kris and to the mayor's office what we're thinking about as far as an acceptable timeline. And from what you're telling us tonight, if you move with the rapidity that you've explained, we should both sides beat that deadline. And I would just ask you guys in the room, you know, to try to be patient for that, because it's a livable timeline. It's a short period of time for what we've been through. So I'll talk to you separately about it. I mean, I'm not going to give you a drop dead date. I'm just telling you we're on the same page. So again, thank you very much. Give yourselves a hand. We appreciate it. And we hope to see you next time for a progression.
I do want to assure you that communication doesn't end with tonight. So we will continue to share with all of you the weekly updates that you've been getting by email. That is certainly an opportunity to ask questions as well. And I'll kind of look to Diane to relay that information. You will continue to hear from us. Okay. So thank you so much for your time today.
I think I just forgot about it. Yeah.
Is there someone here who represents Seattle City for wetlands? Seattle wetlands? No one here? Okay.
Lights are flickering in our behind.